brand new segments. Oval Ye with Vandy,
Not
presented
Vandy.
by Oval E. Yes, without Vandy this time. But we're going to now dive deep into what we've been preaching over the past couple of weeks. Now that we have our our MLR playoff matchups coming up
Yeah.
this weekend, it's time to really lock in who we think we'll be putting into our lineups. And just to refresh people on what we were preaching our past couple of episodes was our approach to these playoffs. From the free to play side of things, you want to pick the best players, the guys that you've been going with all season long, in the matchups that you believe are going to be the most high scoring and back and forth affairs. When it comes to your limited, rare, pay to play tournaments in Oval E, you're trying to pick those players from teams you think are going to go the farthest, at the very least to those conference finals, at the best scenario, making it all the way to the Shield. And that way you're getting the most return on your investment and being able to play one guy through 3 matches instead of having to look for a replacement when that team inevitably gets knocked out. So, Maddie,
Yeah.
let's start off with the free-to-play side of things. We talked a little bit about the matchups. We got Houston, Dallas in the first Western Conference match, Seattle, San Diego in the second Western Conference. Then you got New England, DC, NOLA, Chicago in the Eastern Conference. So when it comes to those matches, what match do you think, are you predicting is going to be that kind of back and forth affair that you're looking for? And within that match, what players are you eyeing for your free to play lineup this week?
I mean, look, we got to remember that the way that Oval E is scoring things is not necessarily always going to rely on scores. Does it help? Of course, it helps. So yeah, we're gonna want to look for some of these back and forth games, things like Seattle, San Diego. I think that one, Code talked about that one's going to be one that we're going to be looking at. But honestly, even like forwards on Houston, like I think forwards on Houston are a good bet here. We talked about Cole about their play style. We've seen their play style throughout the year. I think they're going to have a dominating game against Dallas. So a guy like Ronan Murphy, a guy like Peter Asui, like these are guys that I think are really good bets to pick up. New England, DC, I just don't know. I think it's going to be a really close game. And I think a lot of penalty points are going to be taken. And I'm just not quite sure about who to go there. I would definitely go with a guy like Wayne Vanderbank from that matchup.
And
And then when we
you
get,
mentioned last episode with the
yeah,
kicking points, like Potros would be a good choice.
Potros also, yeah. Potros, I think, is also, if you're looking at that fly position for free to play, I think that's a great choice there. You can't really go wrong with that one.
Yeah,
For sure.
I think for me, I love the Seattle San Diego match. I think that one's going to be back and forth with the conversation, with it being so hot in that NOLA Chicago match. Maybe that's one that you kind of stay away from, possibly. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm picking, I think, any of the back 3 on that Seattle side, I think is going to be a good choice. I would even be happy to go with guys like Thomas Awake, possibly. I think Devon Rousseau would be a good pick as well. I'm really pinpointing that Seattle San Diego match, but I agree with you. Forwards from Houston are a good pick, and I think you can't go wrong with Wayne Vanderbank, but especially Jason Potros if we're predicting kind of that back and forth kind of kicking affair with New England and DC. That's
Yeah.
probably a good way to go.
And a sneaky guy from that NOLA Chicago. I mean, Dylan Fawcett, I think sneaky. I think he's going to put up some points. And then you can't go wrong with Jonah Moe. I find that he's a lock in. So if you got to put a guy in there, remember this is free to play. So it doesn't matter about who's going to go far in the playoffs. Like you said at the start, this is just about picking the best matchups for this week.
Jonah Moe or Ronan Murphy if they're both starting at 8.
I'm Jonah Moe just because, he's got my heart.
Dylan Fawcett or Pita Aneasu your front row.
I would actually go Fawcett.
Okay. Good to know. All right, now let's switch on over now to the limited rare tournaments where it's more of an investment that you're making.
This is where, Ryan, with the limited, if you ask me that same Fawcett, Pita Asu, like I'm going Pita Aneasu.
Right.
That one is Houston has the best chance to make it all the way to the final. If I'm going to invest in a guy, I'm going to put it in a guy that I know is going to be playing as much as possible. So that's the type of guy that I'd want to have. And that's just another factor that you got to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, what we have emphasized here on this show is that you need to just pick a team, regardless of whether you're on the Houston bandwagon or not. Just pick a team that you are the most confident with, whether that's New England, whether that's Chicago. Co thinks Chicago is going to go all the way to the Shield. Whether you think that's Seattle, Really, there's a pathway outside of maybe Dallas that I can see somehow, and maybe DC somehow making it to the Shield. So just
And
go with your gut
yeah,
when it comes to any of those teams and just invest in those guys. Now I guess that begs to the question, Maddie, do you spread the wealth when it comes to investing in those guys? Do you pick maybe two
so
teams? You pick a lot of Houston guys, or do you split that up between Houston and Chicago, or Houston and New England? Like, what's your kind of mind
look,
approach?
you gotta pick. You can pick an Eastern Conference and can pick a Western Conference, right? Like two teams can make it as far as they can go, but they have to be in two separate conferences,
Right,
right? So
right.
maybe you're picking a Wayne Vanderbank and you're picking guys from Houston, like a guy like Davey Kutzer or AJ Alatimu or Ronan Murphy, right? Like if you can get your hands on them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that you should get rid of or sell the guys that you have now, right? Like you have valuable guys. If they're playing in this first round, you can play them.
Right.
Just know at some point you might have to invest in a player that's on a team that's probably going to move on. And if you want to kind of get the most value out of players, you're going to want to invest in guys that are going to play the most amount of games.
Right. And I think that's what's going to be the interesting thing is like you want to probably invest now and take that risk on teams you think are going to be moving on to the next round before they are in higher demand next
Yeah.
week when the price will probably go up in the trade
Yeah.
market and go a little bit higher. So make the bet now, kind of invest in and get the highest return on your investment now and go from there. But that's a great point though, Matt. Don't contradict yourself, right? Don't pick, you know, guys from Seattle, buy guys from Seattle and buy guys from San Diego for this week, because inevitably one of those players is not going to be available for you in the following week.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
pick an Eastern Conference team, pick a Western Conference team, and then go from there and kind of play it by ear. But yeah, great additions. It's going to be fun to have Oval E back this weekend with the MLR playoffs returning after a 2-week break. And it'll be
Yeah.
fun, and it'll be interesting to see who we have in our lineups.